2 marks. Cool. And a clicker. I'm set. Who here is using Gatsby? Lots of hands up. Who is using Gatsby in production? Few hands up. And who is thinking about using Gatsby in production? Some hands. Cool. And this talk is, of course, not about Gatsby. And to start with, I just wanted to share this image, because I think it's somewhat relatable. When you start a new front-end project, you have all these build chains and tools and dependencies you want to pull in just to make a hello world. And I think Gatsby has kind of come to fill a void where simplicity is key, because Gatsby is a static site generator. So it's just kind of builds static files, it makes HTML files for you, which makes them your pages kind of server-side rendered, and your assets are bundled with it, and it's very easy to host. And so I think it kind of fills a void and goes back kind of to the 90s, where you made websites and you hosted them on a web hotel, and Java was still considered groundbreaking, and I look like this. And who am I, anyways? I'm Johan. I nickname Palmfjord HQ. You can find me wherever you want if you want. And I've coded since I was around 10 or 12 or so. And I work for a company called Hedvig. And who's Hedvig? Hedvig, we sell not kind of double clicks my slides. Anyways, so we sell nice insurance. And what is nice insurance? Nice insurance is when or traditionally, an insurance company kind of takes your monthly premium, puts it in a big pile of money, and they pay out the claims they have to from this pile, and the rest they take for profit, which from what I've heard is around 40%. It's quite a lot. And so what we have had to do instead is we still take your monthly premium, then we take a fixed cut of 20%, pay out the claims that we have to from the rest of the money, and whatever is left at the end of the year, we give to charity. So we have no real bias of not paying out your claim. We also keep source code public, and we keep open source very close at heart. So if you want to, you can find us on GitHub, and you can see how an insurance system looks like. And we're quite an app-focused company, but we do have some web components, among them being our web onboarding and our public website, hedvig.com, that I will be talking about. About a year ago, hedvig.com looked something like this. It was built on Gatsby by quite a few consultants, actually. So it turned out a little messy, no offense, NetFlight, regarding consultants. But when you put a lot of different people together, and then things can get messy sometimes. But still, it was a very decent setup. We were using Gatsby, and we hosted it on Netlify. Netlify is really a static site generation hosting provider, and it's kind of on steroids. It gives you a built-in build process. It allows you to handle different environments. It also comes with a very lightweight CMS, which lets you check in all your content into Markdown files. And so your content is actually just Markdown files. And so every content change would open up a pull request in our web repository. And when we want to go live, we merge the pull request, and boop, it builds out in production. It took around 10 minutes or 5 minutes or so, I think. And the CMS looked something like the above. So the content editors would have some fields on the left and a preview on the right. It wasn't really how the site looked, but it was to give them a hint of like, this is what it's going to look like. So this is quite a kick-ass tech stack. Or? Because we have this person at our company we call her the content queen. And she wrote to me, and she said, hey, Palman, because I got the name Palman because we have 2 Johans. I just wanted to check if there's any chance we can make a landing page that looks exactly like the start page, except we remove the 3rd section and put some other copy in. And this is not a non-decent request. So what I did was I just kind of made a little switch for the 3rd section and put different copy in a different markup file. And then she came again, and she said, actually, could we just switch section 4 and 5? And of course, only for the new landing page. And that's a bit tricky over the CMS, but it's fairly easy. You kind of make a different page template, you reuse your components, and boom, you're good. But then she came again, and she was quite upset because, is there no way of getting the build to run any faster? It drives me crazy that I have to wait for over 5 minutes every time I make a change to see how it looks. And I mean, imagine this workflow yourself. How many is using hot reloading here? Some hands. It's quite a change for us. And I mean, we're, at least I am a bit impatient when I have live reloading and I don't have hot reloading, which is a big step. And then imagine not even having incremental builds or cached builds, just production build with npm installed every time you make a change. That is tedious. Also, we had this other slight little issue that we were all over the landing page. That was not the issue, but down here, I'll submit, our peer instances that show the content editors accidentally showed up. Oops. And so, luckily we didn't have any accidents where some copy that was not supposed to go out yet went out. But this could be confusing for visitors, to say the least. So we realized we had some new requirements. First off, we needed kind of section and section templates over page templates. So we wanted to be able to compose complete pages from just a different set of sections that you combine, a bit like Lego. And of course, independence for the content editors. They shouldn't have to wait for 10 minutes every time they make a change. And finally, we wanted some more advanced-ish, at least, environment management, so we didn't have to show our pull request instances on Google. And so we created What Next. And on the left-hand side here, or right-hand side technically for you, you can see somewhat how it looks today, our starting page, landing page. It's built on TypeScript, React, it's server-side rendered Node, it's hosted on Heroku, and it uses something called Storyblock. Storyblock is a CMS we found after evaluating actually a few CMSs, and we made this kind of big battle royale where everyone that knew web had built a small landing page with a CMS that we had found, and we evaluated kind of which CMS was the best one, and Storyblock turned out to be our favorite. Storyblock is a headless CMS, which means it doesn't do templating, it just serves content, which is natural in a way. And it comes with a visual editor, and it has a very nice kind of REST API. And they also just actually released the GraphQL API into beta, or from beta to general availability. So I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but Storyblock is awesome, and GraphQL is quite awesome, so it's probably awesome. And they also have an amazing management API, and this was kind of the key selling point for us, because I mean, if you have worked with CMSs before, if you've worked with, I don't know, even WordPress or something, you're probably familiar with the problem of moving your content schema between different environments. The problem of kind of moving all the fields that are supposed to be there between your dev environment, between your staging and production environment, and so on. And Storyblock comes with this neat little API that lets you kind of handle all of these changes via the API. So what we can do is we can download the whole content schema into a big JSON file, which we almost consider a binary, but we download it from our environment that we work on, and we check it into Git. And once we do that, we can just make a release hook on Heroku that kind of allows us to push this new schema into production or staging or a pull request instance without actually clicking around anything. The visual editor looks something like this. This is our start page, and it's a video banner, so we don't always have a button on our start page. But on the right-hand side, you can see kind of all the different sections that the start page is composed by. And if we move into one of these sections, you will see all the kind of fields that this particular section has. And once you press save, it will, boom, instantly show the content editors what it looks like. As for us developers, this is what we'll see from Storyblock. They will give us a nice JSON response, they'll give us a page title, they'll give us some blocks. In this case, we only show, or I only show the hero block, which is the component of the block, because we can only fit so much JSON on the slide. And how we go ahead and render this is quite simple. We import just all the different blocks we have. We put them in a map, mapped by the block name in storybook. And then we kind of just loop over each block, and we pass all the blocks properties that we get from storybook as React props, which means that once we want to render a block, we can use just regular React props, and it gets very easy to test if we want to do that. Storybook unfortunately uses Snake-case for the API, so it's a bit of a but if that's your biggest issue, then I think we're good. But we're on Google. This is a regular web page. It needs to be server-side rendered. And so what we need to do is we need to run code that is meant to run in the browser on a server. It's magic. Or, because, as we probably know, React comes with this neat little thing called React on Server, which comes with render to string. And that is fairly easy to use. You just kind of pass your React app to it, and it will magically work. Except if you're doing this. What we're doing in this case is we're importing a GIF file as we would normally import an executable script file. That is magic. And that is also impossible because Node will explode and scream at you if you try to do this. So why are we doing this? Well, because Webpack allows us to, and because it will give you as nice hashes on the content we're importing. But this is super easy to avoid. What we can do with it, as for images, just put them in a public directory and you serve it with your server. As for styling, I would avoid CSS modules, and I would rather use CSS in JS. I'm a big fan anyways. And if you really don't want CSS in JS, you can always use Sass. It's worked for a while. As for SVGs, SVGs are just XML. JSX is XML. Just use JSX. And these are, from my experience, the kind of different assets you may want to import. But, there's always a but. What do you do with the initial states? Because the initial state needs to be available to the server also if we try to render the initial state. So I would ask myself first, before I go ahead and try to render the initial state on the server, do you really need to server-side render it? Or is it enough to just render kind of the loading states? Because if you end up with isomorphic state, or state that is available both on the server and the client, you can say goodbye to local storage and session storage, because they will no longer work, because they're not available to the server, and you have to go back to good old-fashioned cookies. And also, probably you know that React's render function is synchronous. And if you try to do something in JavaScript that remotely tries to do something heavy, such as I/O operations or network operations, they have to be asynchronous. And so you can never, and I guess should never anyways, try to fetch things while you render. And that leaves us with the only kind of way of fetching state is to do it beforehand. So we need to fetch all the loaded states before we render. I know React Apollo, for example, comes with this neat little feature where you can kind of traverse the tree that you make from your app. So if you pass kind of your app that you would render into some function that React Apollo gives you, you can kind of analyze that tree, take out all the GraphQL queries you need, batch run them, and then you can kind of pass the initial state into your function. But it's quite high-tech, and if you don't have GraphQL, it's not really an option. So then you need to know in advance which data you will fetch for every page. In our case, that was quite simple because the only data source we had was Storybook, so we just called Storybook every time. And that's okay. And what we did was we built both the client and the server with Babel. It uses TypeScript, but Babel nowadays supports TypeScript, so that's okay. And we use something called the Webpack Stats plugin, the Stats Writer plugin. And the reason for this is that we still want these nice little hash or chunk hashes that Webpack gives us for our JavaScript files, because otherwise we can't set them to have a long cache time, and so we can never change them, or we cannot cache them. So we need this nice little hash at the end of the file so we can bust the cache. And the problem with this is we don't know what the hash will be unless we have something that tells us, and this is what Webpack Stats plugin can do. It can allow us to write it to a JSON file, and so we can pick it up with our node server. And then it's just a matter of saving it. We're using Koa, so we use Koa static. But if you're using, I don't know, Polka, there's probably something for it. If you're using Express, they come with it built in, and so on. And just to give you a hint of what it looks like, this is very simplified, but this is somewhat what our render functions looks like. So first, we just kind of get the content from Storybook, pass them the cache path, because that's what we base which page to show. And then we wrap it with a nice HTML template. I could have put that on the slide either, but probably all of you know what HTML looks like. And then we just kind of run to string our nice little app. As for the client, that gets even simpler. So our initial state needs to go somewhere from the server, so we don't have to refetch it before we render on the client. But that's very simple to do. And so what do we do with these environment configurations where we showed up on Google where we shouldn't? We needed one build for multiple environments, because then we can utilize environment variables that, for example, Heroku gives us very neatly. And it's very easy to pick them up in Node. So what we ended up doing was setting 3 environment variables, one that tells us to use auth, and one that applies basic auth middleware. And so if you have basic auth, then obviously people won't access your server unless they should. And this was also one of the reasons, because Netlify, going back to Netlify, they support basic auth, but they only do it on a kind of per branch basis. You can't do it with environment variables. And so if we would have a staging branch and a production branch, we would risk merging the staging branch into a production branch, meaning we would put basic auth on our public website, which would not be optimal. But this solves it very nicely. And so, is it ready for you to kill Gatsby? If you want build different environments, but the same build, maybe. If you want pretty URLs for real-time content that you can't rebuild every time you make a build. And that would be, for example, if you're showing all your users and you want to show user 1, 2, 3, it might be prettier to put the ID in the path rather than in a query parameter. Might not, depending on what you prefer, but for me, this is more pretty. And if you, of course, want server-side rendering of real-time content, so you don't want to rebuild every time you want to server-side render something. Final point, if you're ready to battle Webpack for a few days. This has been, I think, our biggest challenge to maintain and build Webpack. But there's frameworks for it if you prefer. But in our case, we wanted some more control. And this was overall a very fun project to make. And if you're interested, we're Hedvig, we're on GitHub, all our source code is public, so you can check it out if you want. This repository is called WebNext. And surprise, we're hiring data stats. So if you're interested, hit me up after. And with that, I'll open up if there's any questions.